Can you guys see the waiting room?
No.
Okay. Now, I'm going to encourage everybody to post questions on the chat. If you see a question in the chat you're confident answering, go ahead and answer it. Okay. Otherwise, I will try and do answers at the end, but who knows how much time we'll have. Nora, can you hear us?
I can, guys. Let me just get out of my pajamas real quick.
Okay, yeah, definitely do that before you turn on your camera. All right, everyone, break a leg. Here we go. Good morning, all.
Hello.
I see some familiar faces.
Morning.
We got people coming in, everyone, so we'll wait a couple of minutes as we sort of bring everyone in. But Marcus, good to see you. Harry, good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Jane, good to see you. Didn't recognise you without your fancy suit at the time.
Oh, the compliments are flying in already. Thank you.
You wear a suit well, my friend.
Thank you.
Oh, Mr. Torso's here.
Of course.
Carly Martin's on. Okay.
Yo, maybe a sec.
I was texting with you 5 minutes ago.
You were. Happy man. There we go.
So we've still got people coming in, so we'll hang loose here for a minute.
Oh, man, a big group, and I'm the only one standing? No standing desks?
No.
I have a standing desk, but I'm sitting.
You get a good lean post.
Yeah, the number one fan of my stand desk is my daughter, who calls it the robot and loves nothing more than to make it go up and down whilst I'm sitting at it.
Classic.
Well, look, we might get started, and I'll just keep whacking admit all as people come in. So welcome everybody. Talking about agents. Many of you were at Emergence last week. In fact, this webinar. So we do as a company, we do webinars, on a weekly basis. Most of our clients are not in Australia; they're America, Europe, Middle East. This webinar is mostly people who were at Emergence last week. So my team is pretty well identified because they've all got backgrounds on, and they'll be answering questions in the chat as we go, and so will I. So, consider this sort of like a workshop, right? It's way better if you raise your hand and speak verbally. If you don't want to do that, then jump in the chat and ask questions in the chat. But yeah, this is most valuable to you, I think, if we answer your actual questions, right? Not stuff that we think you want to know about, but actually what's on your mind. I know a bunch of you, and so I sort of have a sense of where different people are in the AI journey. And so we've got some advanced people on the call, and then I'd say the vast majority of people are well-versed in AI, but know almost nothing about agents. And if you consider yourself advanced on agents, this is probably not the session for you. But hopefully we can change that by the end of the session. I'm getting told there's a bad echo. Is it true of everybody or just Dean? Okay, sweet. All right, cool. So I'm a man who hates PowerPoint, and yet today there's going to be some PowerPoint, and then we're just going to go into the tech and we're going to do some things. So cool beans. Let me share the right screen. Okay, and share this guy. Okay, and let me move the chat window so I can see if people ask questions. Okie dokie. All right, let's get into it. So what are we covering? Oh, well, title slide. Last week, I think, for those of you who are in the audience at Emergence, my goal was to scare you a bit, wake you up a bit, get you motivated to learn, right? Steve and I did a session with a whole bunch of sort of business leaders and CEOs, many of whom are here on this call today. And in that 4-hour session, it was the same thing. It was like, let's get people thinking about agents. My message from last week was agents are going to change every single company, every single industry, every single job. And if you stay behind on that curve, you're going to be playing catch up forever if you survive it, right? Just this week, there's been so much sort of up and down in the US stock market because of AI and fear about AI, right? And then, there's two things that happened this week. Their Claude Code released Claude Security, and the leading security companies lost about $500 billion worth of market cap. And then Citibank and Wells Fargo and others, memos got leaked by Bloomberg that they're planning on laying off 200,000 workers in the back office, which also, made Wall Street have a conniption. So, this is coming, but it's coming fast. It's here now in pockets of the economy, and by the end of this year, it's going to be everywhere. So, what are we going to do now? Let's go back. Here we go. So why agents, why now? That was sort of the topic of my talk last week, so we won't do too much of that. Sort of things to know about agents, and that content, which you'll see, is it's more about how you should think about them, how you should plan for them in your business. Many of you are business owners or business unit leaders, and agents are uniquely powerful for you, right? If you remember my last slide last week, I said, agents are great for owners, terrifying for your average employee, don't be average. Well, I watered that down a little bit, right? Agents are terrifying for anyone who's not a boss, and agents are amazing for bosses. And I had a young kid come up to me afterwards. He's studying computer science, and he was like, if everything you just said is true, what should I do? And I was like, buddy, I don't know. If I were you, I'd quit my theoretical computer science degree, and I'd just spend all my time learning how to build agents and run teams of agents. That's the skill of the future. But there's a second reason why agents are uniquely powerful for bosses. And it depends who you work with. Weak AI practitioners, which is 85% of the AI consultants and engineers you'll meet, will give you all sorts of soft metrics on how to evaluate AI ROI and success with AI. And it's all bullshit. Oh, by the way, there's going to be some cussing in this session. If you're not good with that, hang up now. It's all bullshit. Okay, you measure success with AI the way you measure success with human teams, which is another reason why AI is a dream tool for bosses and heads of department and seniors, because you spent a career learning how to measure and manage humans, and measurement of human success and productivity turns into hiring and firing decisions. And the exact same rubrics and sort of thought patterns apply to AI agents. So the example I often use is tech support, but you can sub in just any wordy domain. So Carly here's a lawyer. Junior legal work looks a hell of a lot like technical support work at a technology company. It's incredibly word heavy. There's jargon, there's rules and regulations, there's all this stuff, but it's something AI is phenomenal at. And if you roll out AI to, say, do contract review in a law firm or do tech support in a tech firm, you measure the success of that project exactly the same way you would measure the human team. Some tech support, that is time to resolution, time to first response, time to resolution, dollars or cents per resolution, right? And so you just literally just approach an agentic support function, and you evaluate it using those same metrics. So I guess the good bit I'm telling you there is the skills and experience you've all gathered through your career managing human teams and measuring human teams, those all translate directly to the new AI world. It's just that your employees are part human, part agents, right? And I know that might sound futuristic, but it's not. It's here right now, right? So my little team of like 8 humans, well, 2 comments. Number one, it's at least 5 to 1. In my old company, Scale, I had 200 humans. And so I just know what we do on a per capita basis. And my team now is the equivalent of, say, the old way with about 45 humans. That's the first comment. The second comment is my team does stuff with AI that I don't know how to do, right? I'm constantly amazed by what they're cooking up. And that's both scary and exciting. But yeah, so that's enough intro. This slide, forget the left side, not just because the video of Hugo Weaving's broken, but the right side of this slide is important. What is an AI agent? So there is not consensus amongst nerds like me on what an AI agent is. And for your purposes, it doesn't frickin' matter, right? Like we'll get to the business definition of it, but under the hood, an agent is some combination of these things. An AI model like GPT or ChatGPT that you know, or Claude, a tool calling system. So tools in AI speak are just things like send an email, query a database, edit a file. It's tools, and you'll hear this word a lot in AI land, and like every domain of nerds, we've invented our own vocabulary, which I actually hate. I think it's idiotic. But when an agent is using a tool, it's just using another bit of technology. That's the way to think about it. A context optimized retriever. This is just fancy speak for like find relevant things. So if we go with Carly again, you want an AI agent that can get into her document management system and find all of her client docs. So when you talk to the agent, you say, pull all the contracts for client XYZ, and it can do that, right? A loop, that's really important. It's just keep trying until you can get the work done, or you crash out and say, uncle, I need a human to help me. Short-term memory. This is really interesting, but AI models can't remember anything from one sentence to the next. So when you actually chat with ChatGPT, you're actually using a really simple agent that is giving it memory, conversational memory, it's called. And then skills. Skills are setting the internet on fire, and everyone's talking about them. You know, if you watch the space on LinkedIn, you see a lot about it. It's all stupid hype. Everyone gives Anthropic credit for inventing skills, which I find amusing because we've had skills since January 2024, and so have other platforms. Skills are nothing but incredibly long and detailed prompts that have been saved, and we'll see some skills in practice in a minute. But when you hear about skills, just in your head, think, oh, that's like a 3-page prompt that's been saved in the system, and you can use shorthand like review this contract. And the first thing the agent does is it goes and reads the skill file, which is 3 pages of how to do contract review at Carly's law firm. So it's this slide, which I showed last week, that is relevant, I think, to you all, right? So think about an agent as, imagine you had a version of ChatGPT where instead of just getting bog standard ChatGPT, it knows everything about you, your company, your business, your clients, right? So knowledge and access to proprietary knowledge is the hallmark of a great AI agent. And then it needs to be wired up with tools, because inside your company, you use various IT systems, right, that are bespoke to you. In the law firm context, you know, there's a long raft of legacy document management systems. You're going to want an agent that can talk to those things. Something like ChatGPT can't. But you know, ultimately, what we're trying to build with agents are bits of technology that do work faster, better, and cheaper than humans. And right now, that's real across all sorts of domains. Not all, but many, many, many. And the other, I think probably the most important thing to remember is that everything I'm going to talk about today will be obsolete in 90 days. So if AI can't do it right now, dial back into one of these things in 3 months and find out what it can do. It is wild how fast it's moving. There's a lot of words on this slide, but like anything, there are good agents and bad agents. ChatGPT is a bad agent. Claude through the website's a bad agent. The hallmarks of bad agents are they can't do work, right? Number 5, they don't play with other agents. Number 6, they're a jack of all trades, master of none. Like they're good for sort of, consumer activity, but not really for business. My favorite metaphor is, like something like a bad agent or something like ChatGPT is imagine an 8-year-old who's like got Einstein's brain, has memorized all of Wikipedia and has unmedicated ADHD. That's how I think about like the consumer chat tools, which is what... Oh, sorry. Someone says to me? Nope. Okay, cool. So what's a good agent look like? Number 1, it won't hallucinate. So good agents don't make things up. They always give you claims based on facts. Now, a fact can be this website says the earth is flat, right? Now, that's a fact. What the website says is wrong, but it's still a fact that the website says that. So don't confuse correctness with groundedness or factuality, right? But good agents will give you citations to all their sources so you can check them. Generally speaking, good agents are masters of one thing, and then you put them in a network of agents or a team of agents. What else here is important to talk about? Collaborates well with humans. So, there's the jargon is human in the loop. The good agents know when to sort of bring a human into things. But also then number 8, good agents can work with other agents, right? And it's really when you're dealing with networks of agents or teams of agents that magic happens. Number 11, okay, let's do a show of hands. Who here has ever given AI a job, let it work for several hours and come back to the work being complete? Okay, cool. More than 0. Most people have never done that. Most people are doing a real-time chat with AI, right? And good agents do that. And right now, we're at the point where agents can work for about, I would say it's probably more like 4 or 5 hours unsupervised. I did do a thing last week where I kicked off a job at Steve's conference on the Thursday and it worked for 23 hours and it was finished on the Friday. But when I went back and looked at what it had done, it went down so many dead ends. It was, that work could have been done in, say, 4 hours if I'd been interrupting it and pointing it in the right direction. So again, the mental model is employees, right? Like if you've got an employee you give a task to and a week goes by and you haven't seen anything, you're going to parachute in and be like, what the fuck? Where's my thing? And that's also the rubric for agents. This slide is interesting. Good agents tap out right now at about 50,000 pages of paper or 20 million words. Beyond that, you get what's called context rot and agents get confused. But 50,000 pages is, every bit of information your company has about all your customers, your clients, your products, blah, 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 blah. And then, of course, if you're a really big company, you build multiple agents. But yeah, and 50,000 pages correlates to a stack of paper as high as 3 of me. So let's now go into sort of practical problems. This first one's the big one, right? The reason, one of the biggest reasons why you'll never get love from ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini is that most of the data that is important for you to do your jobs, it's not public, it's private, it's behind the firewall, it's in your proprietary systems. Now, proprietary systems can just be Dropbox, but the point is AI models are built and trained on the internet content. It's why Grok is so hateful. It's trained on Twitter, right? And so a base AI model is never going to be particularly good at your job or your thing or working in your company, right? And that's why 95% of AI use today is consumer driven, because it's, it is amazing at giving me like an animated GIF of 3 cats sailing a boat, but I just don't care about that at work. And then you've got sort of this overarching trust issue, which is that bosses of technology teams at big companies just don't want AI in-house yet. Now, what they're doing there's dumb, and it's similar to when the cloud movement took off. Everyone just started using cloud tools, and shadow IT emerged as a massive problem, right? And when CISOs and heads of security and heads of technology try and fight the people, it doesn't work out very well for them, just like it didn't work out for the French royal family. Like, they're generally going to lose their heads, but that's going to take a little while. And what happens in the meantime is employees are using AI all over the place, but it's not governed, it's not managed, and that's actually bad for everyone. So these are some sort of realpolitik numbers, and I'll come to how we solve those later, but this session is not set up as a sales pitch for our products and services. This is just sort of a generic training course. We went through this last week, and I'll just put it up again, that novel technologies by themselves aren't that useful. So internal combustion engine, was first sold and didn't do much until it was harnessed, and the consumer harness was the Ford Model T. And then it wasn't until 100 years after the combustion engine that the business adoption of it took off. And this stuff down the bottom here is the critical thing, the point that I'm making, that in the case of semi-trailers becoming as important as they are now to the modern economy, that could not happen without an ecosystem. That could not happen without enabling technologies. In the US context, that's the US interstate. For those of you who've driven across America, it's incredible, right? After the war, Ike deployed millions of men, and they built roads that put Australia to shame, that connect every major city in America. And that started in 1956. And then also the shipping container. Without those two things, semi-trailers would not be a thing. Lindsay Fox would not be Lindsay Fox. And so in AI land, the initial innovation actually from Google goes back to 2017, and it's the transformer. So GPT in ChatGPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. It's a type of language model that's built on a neural network. We've had neural networks since the early 80s. But that step change came from an academic paper that Google published for free to the nerd community. And Google slept on it, and OpenAI ran with it. And so November 2022, ChatGPT gets released, the world goes crazy, and that's the Ford Model T moment. And then the AI most of you are using in your personal lives, that's sort of now the consumer AI revolution, and everyone's using it. I see my elderly parents use it to great success, and I see my 4-year-old daughter use it to great success. And so if we never have anything but consumer AI, it's still world-changing. But what you should all care about is agents and the semi-trailer moment that, frankly, is already here, just hasn't rolled through most of the economy. The reason Wall Street is having conniptions is because more and more senior people in Wall Street are seeing the things that me and my team are seeing, right? And so if you are invested, for example, in enterprise software stocks in the US, like I was, get out. Not because they're necessarily bad businesses, but because fear is just trashing valuations. And we're going to see crazy valuation fluctuations in the next 2 years. Data is the gasoline. This would probably be the second most important message I'll make today. Agents only are good if they have good data, right? That's how agents get good. So Steve Torso here has been playing around with Sapience, our tool, and he's built some stuff in Sapience that he's just over the moon about. And I'm going to call on him in a little bit, and he can talk about it. He's doing that because he filled it with good data, and that was data out of Steve's brain. So data doesn't have to mean, Excel sheets. Data can be your intellectual property, right? The way Carly writes a contract. But it's that becomes your edge in the agent world. This slide I did last week about the context was agents can't do my job. That's actually not the point of this slide. The point of this slide is that a well-architected agentic system crushes humans, right? So 300 of the most diagnostically challenging cases. The team of AI agents got the diagnosis right 85.5% of the time. This is 2 years old. It was GPT-4 based. We're now up to GPT 5.3. It was not the brilliance of the AI model that made the difference. It was the architecture of the agentic system and the data and the tools, right? So I guess that's another really important point just to take away from agents. It's not about the model at the center necessarily, right? Like, yes, when you buy a car, the engine matters. And for rev heads, that's all that matters. But if you have a V8 and then you have like the transmission from like a rice rocket, you're not going to get a good car, right? So the enabling technologies around the engine matter just as much as the engine do. And so this is what a team of agents looks like, right? You ask it a simple query and a whole swarm of AI agents fire up in the background to do work in a coordinated fashion to then produce you a 30-page research report, right? And so I guess a question you can be asking vendors and consultants is, is the thing you're pitching, is it going to create a team of agents, a network of agents, a swarm of agents? And if it's not, if it's a single agent solution, I'd probably find another consultant or platform or partner. This slide is a bit wonky, but I'll do it anyway. Operating systems. None of you think about these anymore, but once upon a time, they were a really big deal. Because if you go back to the early days of the personal computer, there were not operating systems, right? There was a black window you typed commands into. Some of you might remember that, but most of you won't. And then along came the operating system, right? And the most successful one became Windows 3 and then 3.1 and 95, and the rest is history. But if you think about what an operating system does, it abstracts away the computer, right? So under my desk is a $20,000 box, and it's a box of chips, right? There's RAM, there's CPUs, a motherboard, there's disks, like they're all semiconductor chips. And by itself, it's horrible. I can't use that. I can't do anything with it. But you stick a good operating system on top of it, and all of a sudden, the CPU does, number crunching. The GPU runs AI models. The RAM makes things work. So, like humans, agents need operating systems, right? So a good agent platform, and I'm going to use Sapience because I know it best, does that for you with AI. The CPU becomes the AI model. So when you hear people talking about GPT 5.2 or Opus 4.6, that's the equivalent of people talking about like Intel Inside. Memory maps pretty directly, right? You need a really strong memory system. Data, agents need access to data. And then multiple users and all the other, and security, all the things that humans need in an operating system, agents need in an operating system too. So agent operating systems are the interstate, they are the shipping container, they are the enabling technologies that allow agents to do work and do work well. And this is actually quite cool, right? So when you're working with the right vendor, it's like having a box of chips that is always getting better. So imagine you wake up and you read a press release, Intel's released a new CPU. And then when you power your PC on, your PC is magically running the brand new CPU, right? That's what happens with sort of good agent operating systems, because the vendors will be constantly upgrading capabilities. And so this is an example, this is again, Sapience context, but this is sort of an example of how agents get built, right? You sort of connect them to one of these core models. They're then multimodal. So if you hear that jargon, multimodal just means it maps to your senses. Good agents you can speak with, you can type with, you can email, you can get in files, you can do all the things you could do with a remote worker. So the offshore VA industry, like the offshore assistant industry is dead. They don't know this yet, neither on the supply or the buy side, but it's just going away. I use Sapience agents that are just staggeringly better than any offshore assistant I could ever hire. And I'm a guy who has used offshore sort of centers of my whole career. So multimodality or multimodal just means that can handle everything a human can handle. And then the output side is where, I mean, you probably know this, right? You know that a good agent can write a 30-page research report or redline a contract or do some other things. We're getting close to the end of the slides. Sorry, that's taken much longer than I thought. I'm going to start showing you this stuff live in Sapience now. I'm glad Steve's here because I copied a WhatsApp message from him into this slide where Steve started using Sapience to do some things and loading it up with data, and sent me this message. Sapience is incredible. I used Claude to build out a full set of skills, blah, 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 blah. Honestly, mate, I felt the same way as I did when I discovered ChatGPT for the first time. That's a big deal because Steve is one of the most advanced AI users I know who is not a coder. So it's thrilled to see that. But what I want to show you in Sapience are some of these core concepts, right? So we're going to build an agent. We can do an example from the audience, or I've got one ready to go. We're going to look at how tools work. We're going to look at how skills work. And this is not a pitch for Sapience. If you're interested in Sapience, then by all means, reach out to me or my team or put a message in the chat. But these concepts are transferable to, good enterprise agent systems. Am I going to show more of these slides? Maybe not. No, I'm not. Let's go and look at some tech. Actually, I'm going to pause. Questions, comments, thoughts, anything at this point? No, okay, cool. Shy bunch. So
I got a question.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm thinking like you hear about the end of SaaS and take Xero, for example, or Atlassian. What I'm wondering in your vision is if you're a small, medium business, I can't quite imagine that if I'm a plumber using Xero, that I'm then going to be running AI and AI agents in the next few years. But I heard your presentation last week and I find it really interesting. And there's a lot of money that's shifted, so it's not just an opinion. There's billions of dollars that's moved. Do you really see that SaaS businesses, especially for small and medium businesses, is going to take over?
I'm going to answer that in one hot second. Anton Gorlin, it is bloody good to see you, buddy. Anton worked with me and Derek for a long time ago, so he's an old friend. To answer your question, let me ask you this. Are you a plumber?
No.
Okay, so why that example?
Because I'm an investor in those SaaS businesses and I'm hearing this massive rapid change. And your presentation last week was, I thought, fantastic. And I'm trying to hear the hype and excitement and the massive change, and then also go, how's this going to turn up in the world?
Okay, so let's take the plumber case. And I've actually got a friend who's building some SaaS tools for plumbers. The plumber will absolutely be using AI agents. He'll be swimming in it. He may just not know that. And you mentioned Xero. If Xero's got any sense whatsoever, they'll be putting agentic workflows into every bit of their software. Because even though Xero did well and disintermediated MyOb, Xero's still a piece of shit. If you tried to do anything in it, it's like so many software platforms, it got big and bloated and it lost its original edge, which was being great and easy to use. Bill Gates' quote that says, AI agents will be the primary way we deal with computers. That's at the heart of the SaaS disruption. And he's right. And you're talking to a guy who invented the command line effectively, DOS, the first mass market operating system on the IBM PC compatibles. He coded, him and Paul Allen. They bought source code, then they hacked it. Then Windows, same thing. Those were reinventions of ways of dealing with a box full of chips. AI represents that next thing up, which is an intelligence layer as your user interface. Some people call it like a TUI, text user interface. That's a dumb name. What we're really talking about is intermediating the computer and the data and the tools and the software with something that seems intelligent. So I can say to it, send me an email, do this research, right? Create this financial model. So if you're investing in SaaS businesses, early stage investor or late stage or what?
We've got a mix.
So so me too. I would not invest in any early stage software companies for a while. I would just shut that down, particularly in Australia. I have not yet met a startup founder in Australia who knows anything about AI, right? And I find it sad and frustrating and disappointing, but that's just my experience. Now, larger software companies, they need to be getting all over AI like hard yesterday. And if they're not rolling AI out in their core products, then they're going to get disrupted by the folks that do. And so let's take this to the jumbo example. CrowdStrike, one of the world's most valuable companies, certainly the world's most valuable security company, this week lost tens of billions of dollars worth of market cap because Claude rolled out Claude Code Security. Right? Now, Claude Code Security is actually pretty good. I've got a bunch of CISO friends, including the former chief technology officer of CrowdStrike, who is staggered and terrified by what Claude Code Security can do. But CrowdStrike is truly screwed unless they take all of those contracts they have with customers and agentify them. Now, the reason the public market reactions to enterprise software is dumb is this. Procurement cycles are long. Human beings are slow. Many of these companies, like CrowdStrike and Microsoft, are welded into their customers and cannot be pulled out. Even if the CEO said today, F off CrowdStrike, that'd be a 3-year migration. So the moat has changed. No longer does it matter if what your product does is better, because now I can copy that in weeks or months. What now matters is brand, customer relationships, being able to do this, right? But this is the reason why I say get out of early stage tech investing right now, because pre-revenue startups, by definition, have none of that. They don't have customers, they don't have loyalty, they don't have brand, they have no defensibility unless they're in maybe deep tech. So Thursday's day of Steve's conference, where it was deep tech, and you've got companies who are doing hard things, and there was a good quote, hardware is hard. Things where you can wrap patents around it, that's now where I would argue money needs to flow for the time being. Software investment, like, I mean, this will sound douchey, but I know more about software than anyone on this call. And I'm an investor, and I've bought and sold software companies. I've built software companies. I am not going anywhere near early stage software.
Yeah.
And maybe in a few years when things calm down and we know what the new normal is, fine.
Yeah. I guess I'm coming more, not so much from new investment, but I love your analogy about the combustion engine. And it took 100 years to go from that to the trucks, right? Now, I don't think 100 years in those years is today, that might be 10 years, but it's really about human change management and procurement departments and enterprises being aligned, making decisions.
Yeah.
The pace at which that can happen is sort of the interesting bit for me. Because these businesses have, but I don't want to take off. It's just that's the sort of fascinating thing of this big AI for me, is how it gets adopted and used.
So let me show another slide. Some of you've seen this, some of you haven't, but it's on point for this conversation. So this slide maps human work, valuable human work.
Yeah.
Stuff that is very sensitive to errors is at the top. So brain surgery is at the top, and stuff that AI is good at is on the right, and crap at is on the left. So brain surgery is up at the top left, right? AI is not good at that yet. And I do say yet because I think in 10 or 15 years, robots plus AI will be fine there. But today, forget about it. On the other end of the spectrum, marketing, copywriting, and search engine optimization, I had like 4 or 5 humans who did this for a living in my company. That industry's gone. just doesn't exist anymore. Those are no longer jobs. Most coding. So, Anthropic's been out there recently saying we've solved the coding problem. Now, there are 27 million professional programmers on Earth. Like, let's just take them at their word for a second. And I do, because I've seen it, so I know it's true. But just, even if you don't believe it, let's pretend it is for a second. What does it mean for planet Earth that an industry with 27 million professionals who studied for a long time and developed their craft over decades, what does it mean when they no longer have a job? Right? Like, that's the scale of things we are talking about. And the reason I brought up the slide is I put legal on here, but that ain't true. From a capability standpoint, most legal's absolutely AI-fiable right now. But lawyers are stodgy, they're slow, they're incredibly slow to adopt technology, they're difficult to work with, they're the worst kind of customer in the world. I'm saying all this, I was a lawyer. My first job was lawyer for the US government. Got a lot of dear friends in the industry, but AI is not going to take over the legal industry, at anything like the rate at which it's taking over the software industry. And it might be 10 years before it is normal that lawyers are using AI en masse. Someone like Carly here, early adopter, leaning into it. And if Carly's smart, 10 years from now, Carly will be, worth $100 million because she will have built the AI law firm and then gone and sold it to law firms around the world. And Harvey is doing just that. So if you've ever seen the TV show Suits, Gabrielle Marks plays Harvey. So there's a US tech company called Harvey who's doing this, and they're now worth $10 billion. They didn't exist 4 years ago. But this slide is already wrong. Medical research, I got a friend who runs an oncology lab in Washington State. She is no longer hiring humans, and her plan is just let all of her employees resign out over time and just keep her most senior people and use AI for the rest. Because AI does, in fact, currently now do better medical research in a commercial oncology lab for big pharma better than the humans does, right? And so, And this is big stuff, and it's above my pay grade, and I don't have answers. I got challenged by a lot of pissed off people last week at the conference from what I said, sort of demanding what the answer is. And I'm not president of the world. I don't have answers. I'm just calling it as I see it. But we go to, which slide am I going to go to? I'm going to go to this slide. Right, so this one matters, that if Joe, this is, Joe, think of Joe as like a junior partner at Accenture, right? So, Joe costs Accenture $300,000 a year. He's primarily delivery. He's not client face. He's not a rainmaker. His team doesn't love him. Half of Joe's job right now can be done by AI. And so Accenture can get rid of half of the Joes on their payroll, right? And that was the memo that went around Wall Street this week. 200,000 back office jobs in the biggest, richest Wall Street firms are going to be axed in the next 12 months. So I went down a rabbit hole, but did that answer the question?
Yes, thank you. No, it's unfolding. Yeah.
From the other side of the world. So I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. My name's Derek, everybody. So I'm an advisor at the Atlanta Tech Village, which is the third largest incubator here in the States. And as far as investment in new startups right now across the United States, VC-funded startups are down. So what Ken said about kind of pumping the brakes is true. But one of the other things that I see pretty commonly in some of the exercises I do with new companies is they haven't really come up with a good value, and their solution stops when they say AI. And I try to guide them to say, replace AI with automation. And if that still makes sense, then great. If not, you don't have a solution yet. And so we've kind of forgotten what we already went through and learned in the early 2000s when software really started to take off. Things like building in security by design. You can't just jump into these platforms and trust that your data is going to be secure. So trust by design is a key component of Sapience and why we see that people actually feel comfortable putting in their sensitive information. I put in my personal approach to product strategy and marketing, knowing that I'm not training Gemini's model on what makes my approach unique.
But just to generalize what Derek said, and going back to what Dennis said, the humans are the problem, right? Human change management takes time. It's going to be a while before companies trust AI at scale. And I'll tell you when it will happen. It's when the competitors start whipping you because they have gone hard on AI. That's when people will wake up. And by then it'll be too late, right? So, yeah, it's like it is going to happen. It's just a matter of which industry you're in and how fast it's going to hit you, right? And let me give you now some just live examples, okay? I suck at PowerPoint and slides. My team generally helps me a lot with my slides. But this morning, I asked Sapience to go to our website and build me a slide deck. So it went out to the website and it built this. Now, I could never, gun to my head, make this myself. And I have a full-time employee whose job it is to do this. And he's probably wetting himself right now. And my speech for my team is, no, don't wet yourself. Your job is to now use the tools and be better and faster. I'll give you another live example. So this is Sapience. This is our AI platform. Is Brian on? Yeah, Brian's on. Brian, wave. Cool, that's Brian. Let me find the file. Now I can't find the dang file. So Brian is a data scientist, right? Any number crunching I ever want to do or visualizations, Brian's my guy. But in Sapience, we have what we call Mini Brian. And Mini Brian is better at data science and visualizations than Big Brian. And I pull this up and you're like, yeah, who cares? Yawn. Until you realize this is actually an interactive 3D model. So I threw a data file into an agent with 1 million data points, right? 10,000 rows of data. And I asked it to visualize it for me. And the agent decided it was going to code an application to render it as an interactive 3D model that allows me to zoom in, zoom out, export the data, analyze it. Oh, hang on, let's go back in here. Analyze it from different angles, literally different angles. And I gave this to the client, and the client lost their minds and thought that it took us a month of work to build, not 5 minutes. And it's allowed the client to understand their customers. Each one of these represents a customer, by the way. Each one of these represents between 20 and 500,000 euros worth of revenue. And so the insights that they've gleaned from this is epic. And I suspect, so when I asked Brian how long it would take him to do this by hand, he thought for about 30 seconds and then sheepishly said, never. He could never build this by hand. He just doesn't have those skills. And I suspect Brian was wetting himself for a little while too, until Brian started using the agents. And now Brian's working at a level he could never work at before, right? Now, that's what will happen in some companies. Use AI to make your team go faster, do more, be better. In other companies, Brian loses his job, right? What else have I got ready to show you? Yeah, okay, cool. So this is a good one. I can't build websites, like never, ever, ever. I can hack the Linux kernel. I can't build a website. So I asked Sapience to build a website about itself. And so it came up with this: best AI for every job, no FOMO. Use tech from OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google. Your head of security, so Chief Information Security Officer, will love it. Your team will trust it. An AI-ready workforce. I love this. Like, out of the box, Sapience comes with all of these different agents. So it comes with a designer, it comes with a data analyst, a research assistant. Your entire stack reimagined for AI. So Sapience has file storage in it, like Dropbox or Google Files. It's also got a word processor. And so it came up with this, I'm not a marketer. I would never have come up with Word plus Notion plus Evernote killed with kindness. But the agent, which is self-aware, understands itself, has access to our data and our website, and is hyper-tuned to be a marketing agent. Not only did it build a sexy website, but it came up with marketing and messaging that is fantastic, right? So in my little team where I don't have a head of marketing, I sort of do, right? Like with the AI, I can now do things that I couldn't possibly do. I'm a pretty skilled guy, but I can't do this. But I got an agent that can do this, right? So, yeah. What should we do next? Do you guys want to see? Do you want to see some more Sapience? Do you want to see me build an agent? Like, let's make this. Do you want to do Q&A and argue about some things? I'm totally flexible.
I have a question,
Building one
Ben.
would be interesting.
Oh, sorry. One at a time. Go again.
Building one would be interesting. And what kind of software you use for building? Is it Sapience only? Is it something else for building an agent? That's kind of interesting.
Sure. We've got some other people saying build an agent on the chat. Yeah, okay, let's build an agent. I'm going to use Sapience for two reasons. Number one, I own the company. Number two, it's genuinely the best agent platform on the market that I've seen. And it's being used by Micron and Toyota and Fortune 500 companies, but it's also good for small companies. And number three, it's the one I know the best. So a lot of the concepts I'm talking about translate to things like, say, Copilot, which is genuinely shit, or Agentforce from Salesforce, or Claude Code, but demoing those things is hard, so I'm just going to demo in Sapience. Right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this project here. So I created this before the webinar. In Sapience, projects are sort of like a little workspace, right? And so projects are traditional project management software. I can have tasks that I assign to humans. So I can come in here and I could assign this job to a human and I can manage it like I would, sort of, like these are the Eisenhower matrix. For those of you who aren't familiar with the method, it's just ranking things by urgency and importance. And Ike credited this with why he won World War II. But what's cool here is that the work in this project I can give to a human or I can give to an agent. So this task here, create email messaging for webinars, I actually gave this to an AI agent, right? So the task was create email messaging for webinars, read this website, draft 2 different emails like an A/B test to promote webinars that are about generic AI skills, but also using Sapience as a demonstration platform. The agent did some work. I can see its scratch pad, right? So these are the notes that the agent left for me. So it's done the work. It created email A. It created email B. It read the website. Like I can go in and audit what it's done, and auditability in the context of big companies is vital. So everything here is auditable. But then I can go over and I can have a look at what it actually created for me. So, and I haven't looked at this. I did this just before the webinar started. So, okay, email A. Yeah, that's not bad. Okay, that actually sounds like me. And that right there is part of a good agent system, right? Good agent systems learn your tone of voice. I would actually send this to Brian and say, skew that up in HubSpot. I might tweak it a tiny bit. So what are we seeing here? We're seeing an agent at work that worked without me interacting with it. It was just behind the scenes. We're seeing an agent that understands me, my tone of voice, how I think, how I write. We're seeing an agent use good data, so our website and a whole bunch of internal data. We're seeing an agent, in this case, it actually worked on a schedule. So in Sapience, we can do and remember, everything I say in Sapience, you can generally take these concepts to other tools, not necessarily one-to-one, but in general. So in Sapience, you can create scheduled jobs, right? So I can just I can schedule a query. I can say LinkedIn post and I could pick an agent, and I could say, send me, I could say this, research the latest Wall Street related news regarding AI. 2, email the news to me. 3, research the best practices for viral LinkedIn posts in the moment, and that's important because it's always changing. 4, draft 3 LinkedIn posts for me and email them to me. And I can schedule that job, and tomorrow morning it'll wake up, it'll work for that job, maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and it'll be in my inbox. All right. Now, no joke, the way I run my day is I wake up, I review all of the stuff that AI has done for me overnight. I then queue up a whole bunch of tasks and work. I go and have a coffee, I have a cigarette, I have a shower, I come back, and all this stuff just got done. It's a better way to live life. So if we wanted to so now let's talk sort of about agents. So in general, going back to what I was saying earlier, right? Agents have a CPU, what they call, they have an AI model, then they have tools, and then some have skills. So at the conference last week, some of you might have seen that Steve demoed some slides for DIT AgTech. Steve, are you cool with me showing this? Is he still here? There he is. Sweet. Okay. So let's go into this. So the first thing I'm going to do is we'll just click on this features card. So the model being used here is Claude Opus 4.6. That's the latest reasoning model from Anthropic, and it's a powerhouse. It's what is used. It's the guts of Claude Code. These down here are tools. So we talk about tools are where AI uses traditional technology, right? So these are all the tools this agent has. It can do skills, it can search the web, it can write code, it can read, write, edit files, it's got memory, it's got vision, so I could give it a picture of a whiteboard, it'll understand it. It can't generate photos, it can send email, I don't know why, but it doesn't have scheduled job support, doesn't have PowerPoint, but those are just a toggle we could turn on. And inside the agent's brain, so now let's turn to data, right? Inside the agent's brain are 2 files. One is DIT AgTech's IM, like their actual fundraising pitch docs. And I spent some time with the CEO of DIT AgTech at Emergence, and his feedback was that the slides that Steve and Sapience created for his company were much better than the slides created by Celine, the human investor relations lady who was standing next to us. Right?
Celine.
Sorry?
Or Celine.
Yeah, but not if Celine starts using the tools and right.
Exactly.
And therein lies the rub. AI should be terrifying for average employees. Don't be average. And then going sort of further down the rabbit hole, agents have instructions. And so unlike humans, AI agents actually do what they're told. And so this agent, and all of this, by the way, was generated by AI. So it's AI building AI. But it's instructive to sort of look at these, right? So you are the Emergence DIT AgTech agent. You're an expert on the company, an Australian AgTech who is exhibiting at Emergence 2026. So what we're seeing, sorry guys, let me back up and zoom out. What we're seeing now is the inside of an AI agent, the code, if you will, that runs it, the instructions. And you probably won't see this in most of your life. And so here are the tasks that this agent has been told it should be focused on. And now there's some stuff in here about context and tools. So always ground answers. That's vital. So search Sapience and any connected files. Steve, that's why it was finding your skill files, right? Because that's a sort of a generic instruction that's usually in there. Tone and limits, so match the user's requested style, blah, blah, all this stuff. But let's see what it can actually do. So I'm just going to say, tell me about DOT Actic. So everyone wanted me to show you building an agent. What I just walked through is how you would build an agent, right? You, in general, rather than just imagine that was empty and I dragged the files in and I typed in this stuff here at the top, which is sort of just the basic stuff about the agent. All right, so now it's doing some work. It's having a think. Now, notice here the footnotes. Right there, that's a big hallmark of a good agentic system, is every claim or every point citable back to trace documents. And that's called grounding. So it's giving us all this good stuff. Yeah, all right, still going.
Hey, Ken, one of the things you said earlier that I really like about how this system works is when you said that this managers or leaders who are already have the skill set of how to build out teams, how to delegate work, and kind of put an operation together. There's not a whole lot of difference in how I've been using it. If I'm onboarding a human, creating an agent, I give it the baseline documentation that I want it to refer to and always remember. I then do, my own voice recorded training with it to fill in the gaps of, a nuance that isn't covered in the text documents I give it. Give it a few runs at something, do another voiceover, human in the loop to say, this is what you got right, this is what you got wrong. And then after a little bit of time, you don't have to manage that human so much anymore, right? And I really love how it just kind of fits into that workflow. I'm very used to managing teams and onboarding people and putting operations together. And this just fits right into that.
Yes, with some very important caveats. How do I stop the screen share? Hang on a second. All right, I don't know how to stop the screen share, which is annoying. I've lost the control bar in Zoom. Can you all still see me? Yeah?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so Derek was just saying that, he builds AI agents and he trains AI agents the way that he would create and build teams of humans. But here it is. Here are some key points to know. I gave Derek his first job. Derek has worked for me in some capacity or another for 20 years. I trained Derek. He is the closest executive to being a mini version of Ken, for good or bad, that exists on planet Earth. It took me fucking years to get Derek good. And with AI agents, I can get them good in a week. Right? So I love Derek. I was in his wedding party. He's a close personal friend and an amazing exec. It took years to get Derek good. Right? AI agents take weeks to get good. And they do what you tell them. And trust me, that wasn't always true with Derek. And with humans, that's fine. That's how they learn, right? I can't remember which, it was like IBM, a senior executive did something and it cost the company $10 billion. And a journalist asked the CEO, are you going to fire his ass? And he replied back, why? I just spent $10 billion training him. And so with humans, you go through that journey. With AI agents, you don't. If you can take everything out of Carly's brain and put it into a document and then train an AI agent on that material, you'll now have a Carly bot that Carly can use to upskill baby lawyers who are cheap, or offshore lawyers who are super cheap, or no lawyers at all. Just Carly doing 5 times as much work.
So do you think that there's going to be eventually a pushback from employees and generally, or unions or people saying like, I want this?
So great question, Slobodan. And I've seen you at various events. The Industrial Revolution is a comparison that many people make with AI. And what many humans forget is that the Industrial Revolution was a precursor to government revolution, and millions of people died in the Soviet Union and other places with societal upheaval that came from that. The rise of the robber barons in the late 1800s led to the formation of organized labor in the United States and the modern Democratic Party, etc. The Industrial Revolution took 100 years to roll through society. When we talk about 27 million programmers being out of jobs, what does that mean for countries and governments? Revolution is the right word, right?
Yeah.
Not in America, not in Australia, but somewhere. You think Modi in India can survive as PM if the Indian programming industry gets wiped out? No freaking way. In the next 5 years, we're going to see governmental change because of AI. Like there's a hot take. The Dario Modi's quote of 20% unemployment in the United States and 50% of all white-collar work going away is staggering in its implications. And I think he's right. Now we're way above all of our pay grade. But the way for us to all be on the right side of this transformation that's coming is being people who know how to think about agents, budget for agentic workforces, budget for hybrid workforces, do the human change management, to sort of figure out which humans are going to survive and still have jobs and which aren't. And for those of you who are leaders and managers, that's going to be a really hard task coming. Like, that's almost something we should be talking about more and training on is in the next few years, we're going to be firing people because of AI. How do you lead through that transition? Right? Like that's coming real fast. So Slobodan, the question you ask doesn't have answers, but the question you ask highlights like just the blast radius of AI agents is far bigger than anyone is talking about in public.
Yeah, because I like history a lot, and I see the same thing happening. Like in the beginning of the 1900s, also the farmers were destroyed in the US and pushed into industry because of the revolution. So I've seen the same thing.
Some of them were. And so, but like, let's build on that, right? So a slide I used last week and have used before is the guy pushing the horse-drawn plow. And I said, what do you guys see? I see a lawyer not using AI. That started with an in-joke between Carly and me at the AI Summit last year, but it's real. And the executives and leaders who get on the agent bandwagon now, great. Like your job's safe. I think one of the most critical skills in the future is understanding agents, building agentic workforces, building augmented workforces. So workforces of humans plus agents, managing that human transition into that new world. That's one of the most prized skill sets out in the software industry right now. The only skill set that matters is your ability to drive swarms of agents. If you can't do that, you're out of a job. So like that's the executive skill set of the future. And for owners and investors and senior leaders, like that's where your brain's got to get to.
Beware of empty bellies. That's the history lesson.
Now we're over time, but I'm happy to sit here and answer questions and do Q&A. So anyone who has anything, let me know.
I have a question.
Go.
Oh, I have basically two questions. First one, do you see a cascading effect coming? Like, I don't know, some orchestrator AI training swarms by itself and doing stuff?
Yeah, for sure, mate. Think about everybody in our office in Kiev. Like most of them, I would not pay money to anymore, right? I'd keep Alexia, I'd keep you, I'd keep the senior engineers who could talk to the Americans. But most of the rank and file, like you'd fire their ass. And the testing team, forget about it. So like what I do all day long now is I got one planning agent using a senior reasoner like Opus 4.6. It's then building out plans of JSON task files that then one agent per JSON gets fired up. So when I kick off work, I might have, like I've got a command and control agent, I might have 15 parallel workers working from the master agent's plan. The reason I got a $20,000 computer is to do all of that. And so you remember how I like to meddle in software design, and you guys hated meetings with me. But these days, I would have just fired the guys who said no to me. And I would have just said, fuck it, I've built it. So I love you, and you were good because you could talk to AVG. We had $1 million customer in America that loved Anton. But mate, most of the guys in the office in Kiev, they'd all be gone.
Right. Yeah, that's what's happening currently. Not in that company, but in my current company. All right. Another question. We're saying about how developers are going to struggle, and it's happening already, and I don't know, designers and whoever. But there is so much saturation in there, and some controllers would have to stay. And what happens next is, are we going to see AI in company boards? Are we going to see AI CEOs? And because it will have to expand somewhere.
No. The powerful white men who make a lot of money will control this thing into the future, right? And if you look across the AI landscape, it's controlled by powerful white men. So no, we're not going to see AI on boards and in the CEO seats. But it is coming for every single function. The CEO who doesn't use AI is not CEO in 5 years. Plain and simple.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Altman will not survive as CEO of ChatGPT because he's a freaking child and he's running one of the most important companies on earth. I can't wait for OpenAI to go public so we get an adult running that thing, right? But like the bar for CEOing is being raised epically, right? The CEOs who don't adopt AI are going to get lapped by their competitors, and then the boards will kick them out.
All right. Yeah, that's it from me. Thank you.
Good to see you, bro.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Ken, Marky, just for someone who's getting their heads around the whole concept and process and workflow. Now, maybe to use the analogy of the other gentleman, Janice, I think it was about plumbers. So typically we work in a manufacturing sector. We either buy widgets in or we buy material in. We assemble widgets, we stack them on shelves, we take orders, and it's all very manual. Other than of course the order process which comes in. There's someone entering orders. There's someone then telling the admin people, "Hey, the order's ready. Come and get it." Okay, they then contact the truck, the delivery. Right? You see the whole workflow thing going on. You've got 10, I say, dozen people on the floor picking and packing and moving things because of the size of the business. It's not an Amazon. You can't just roboticize everything.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, okay, how do we start? How do we put a framework in place so we can actually go down this path and not be left behind? Albeit the business can't upscale to a mini or a micro Amazon because it never will. You need all these things going all the time.
Yeah. And the plumber analogy is apt, right? Like, what about businesses where you need someone who can walk on grass, pick things up?
Sure. So talk to that point. Like, I mean, what would you say to businesses like that are saying, okay, how do we start adopting?
So I think what I said to you in that workshop 2 weeks ago holds, which is start with you, right? Same to you, Harry. I saw your email from yesterday. I haven't replied yet. Sorry about that. So start using AI yourself, right? And I think it like, unlike other technology waves, AI is tech that is uniquely suited for bosses and should start at the bosses. So this is a lead from the front type. It was not true of any other technology wave ever, actually. That was always let the nerds pilot it, and a few years later, the CEO pays attention. This is not that. That's the first thing. And sub in CEO for head of. You don't have to actually be CEO. That's the first thing. Number two, when I hear everything you just said, order taking, AI could handle. Customer complaints, AI could analyze and route and escalate. Pick, pack, ship, I imagine you have a ton of contract labor. AI could analyze schedules and rostering, save you a ton of money. That's what Frank's doing, who also has a lot of contract labor. Pick, pack, ship. Ordering, shipping, widgets, logistics. AI can crunch those numbers in a way you never will and find efficiencies that you haven't yet found. Customers and outreach. AI can analyze where you're actually winning and which product sets work the best, like that medical device thing we talked about. And you can probably steer it to investigate and help identify new opportunities. Outreach and outbound, growing revenue. AI can then go scour the market for people who look like your existing winning customers. AI for you you can just understand your team, your company, your problems, your customers at a scale you've never done before. So without much context, there's 7 ideas.
And so therefore to do that, putting the digital workflow or digital framework in, start recording, start documenting, or the data's probably, I guess the data's there already in our server.
Data's there.
Data's there. The guys need to log their hours for the work and what job they're doing, and then I can analyze how long it's taken to assemble. Okay, I see it now. The scheduling. We've got $100,000 worth of work orders. We've got these parts in stock, these parts in stock. AI knows how long it takes to assemble them because we've got 5 years worth of that data. It'll tell me which job to start first and how to start and how to progress without even.
That is exactly it. That 3D model I showed, like that led to material change in that company's business, led by the CEO who was armed with insight that he could never get before.
Exactly, because the scheduler, and God bless them, the schedulers they panic. They go, oh, this guy didn't turn up, this guy didn't turn up. I had plans for today. That's not going to happen now because this material's not in stock. The agent will just run another script or whatever, says, yep, no worries. Johnny didn't turn up and Mary's off sick. Okay, start on this job.
Yeah, but also you build into the agent instructions. Whenever an employee does that, run an analysis of how frequently they do that and tell me which one's to fire.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah. That's right.
Like that guy's got to go, right?
Yeah, it let us down 3 times already. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, in the past, you may not have had the time or been organised enough to be able to see a pattern in Johnny being, delinquent. But now that's at the click of a button, and on and on and on and on. Remember the grid we put on the whiteboard where I was like, divide your week into 40 boxes?
Yeah.
That's the technique. Divide your week into 41-hour boxes, and you start putting AI in the boxes, and you do it for yourself first. You're not going to fire yourself. But then you do it for your team, and you do start firing humans and consolidating.
Yeah.
Also, take Frank. He doesn't want to fire anybody. He's a good dude. So his plan is just never hire anybody ever again.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. No, good. Thanks, Ken.
Carly, you've been surprisingly quiet. You're on mute.
Take over. Oop. Can you hear me now? Yeah, okay, perfect.
Yes.
Yeah, I think this absolutely is the future. What I'm looking at is kind of both the oversight of agents around how to build really sustainable agents where you can show your work, understand the steps, how all that needs to be built for institutional scale. But also the next layer kind of needs to be built at the same time, which is the governance and investability of an agent-defined business. So I'm thinking about board level, capital level decision making. How do we build smart agent-led businesses that tie to the longevity of a business? So how do we make sure that boards can stand behind their directors' duties, understand like how the governance of this works, but build governance so that it's not a blocker. It's actually built into the DNA of the build up front so that you're never saying to tech, hey, stop, like we haven't got a plan for this. You're actually building the DNA of the business in line with governance and risk.
You and I are at the opposite ends of this debate.
Yeah, I know.
And just so everybody else knows, my attitude is F governance, let's go. And the reason for that is that 52% of the world's AI researchers are in China, and governance doesn't translate into Mandarin. And governance is generally used as an excuse for not acting. But among lawyers, Carly is probably the best when it comes to this topic. And so, Carly, yeah, you could have a rich business for the next 5 years selling AI governance courses to boards for 20 grand a pop. And maybe you should, in fact, do that.
More expensive than that.
Yeah. But the governance conversation is generally a big break on progress. And here's the other reason why I say F governance. Young, scrappy startups don't have governance. And Harvey, which didn't exist 3 years ago, doesn't have any governance. Now they're worth $10 billion. And they're the most valuable legal tech company in the history of legal tech.
Mm-hmm.
They still don't have any governance. And so, companies that get too bogged down in that topic are they're gonna use it as an excuse to not get stuff done. And then they're gonna be hurting.
To explain what I mean is like Harvey's always going to hit a ceiling if it can't do the next layer, which is how do you operate like the best tech in the world within large corporates and within enterprise level like vendor management. And what that's going to require is another piece, which is like if you're operating like an investment firm in a regulated industry, you're doing legal, you're doing all the hard things that touch like private cyber, all the stuff. That piece is exceptionally valuable if you can crack that.
But that's not governance, that's trust, right? So if you remember at the AI Summit on stage, I said that let's stop calling this governance, let's call it trustability.
Yeah. Okay.
So AI trustability, that is a massive topic. That's what's at the heart of Sapience, and that's why Micron and Toyota use us, is because it's a system you can trust, you can deploy it on your own metal behind the firewall in your company. The security.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about layering credibility and trust through all of it, so that you know that it is what it says it is, which makes it more investable and more deployable.
Well, so look, I think so. If I was you, and still wanted to sell some slices of my time, rather than build Carlybot and sell digital technology. If I were you, I would have two sets of vocabulary and two pitches. To forward-leaning companies, I'd be saying, okay, let's put trustable AI frameworks in place. I was at Amazon. Yeah, I'm a lawyer, but I'm an entrepreneur. We built Kindle. Have you heard of it? That I'll teach you how to put trustable AI in place. That'd be one stream of work. And I'd help with that one. I'm cool with that. And then for the companies that, suck, you could sell them the AI governance package and focus on that because they're going to eat that up, and Australian government entities would love that too, blah, 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 blah. And the syllabus of both programs is probably 80% overlap, right? Yeah.
So that's exactly what I'm doing. I see two brands, one being the known expert in agentic AI, sort of like legal frameworks and the building and how to build it in the scrappy kind of way. And then when they then get to institutional level, that's a very different type of approach. And then you're selling a different service. And ultimately, it's kind of like a diagnostic, but you're also giving them not just a legal view, a strategic view on how to build. So like the strategy, operations, tax, legal, like all the pieces, put my brain into the diagnostic so that actually is an exceptionally valuable thing that people can deploy really quickly.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll show you all later.
Yeah. But I think, look, abstracting what Carly and I are talking about for everyone's general use, humans fall into two camps with AI. They're excited or they're afraid. And so what I was just saying about how Carly should sell her strategic legal services, that's two camps. Companies that are excited about AI, companies that are afraid of AI. And that is going to be true of your employees. That's going to be true of your board of directors. It's going to be true of your investors. That's going to be true of your customers. So you've got to be able to handle both sides of the equation, right? If you're on this webinar, you're almost certainly excited by AI. Wouldn't be here, I don't think. But humans are not uniformly excited by AI at all. Anyone else got any thoughts or comments or questions? Okay. Well, thanks all for joining. You're the committed few at the end. I hope it's been useful. There'll be more of these in the future, so let us know if you want to be in on those calls. You can reply to my email, or you can just post in the chat now if you would like to be invited to future webinars. Yeah, other than that, I think you've all now got my email by definition. Feel free to reach out, and if I don't see anything in the future, happy 2026. Build some agents.
So thanks, Ken.
Thanks, guys.
Nice to see you all.
Thanks, Ken.
Thanks.
Thank you.